Is that a boat?
Yes, this boat has a chest built in for all the cool things you find at sea. And look, it's our new friend, the frog. Ew! Actually, we're not that close.
Here's a mangrove, a tree that thrives in the swamp.
There are a lot of awesome things coming, the first of which is the boat with the chest in it. We are adding the mangrove tree to Minecraft.
We're adding frogs.
That's right, although the swamp lost the 2019 biome vote to the mountains, it's returned. Though, to be fair, we were promised that all the losing biomes would eventually return. However, Minecraft 1.19 isn't just about the swamp. In case you missed it, here's the big reveal.
Okay, so the next update is called the Wild Update.
So yes, 1.19 is the wild update, and it focuses on updating some pretty wild places, such as the swamp, which I'll get back to later. But this update also adds the Deep Dark. Now, it is unfortunate that the Warden and the Deep Dark have been delayed once again, but it's been delayed for good reason, as you'll see in this teaser trailer, which is just too awesome to not show.
Let's actually look at some of the new things that we have in it right now, which is the ancient cities.
That's awesome. I can't wait. Oh, wow.
That was quite a lot to process in the reveal of Ancient Cities. Now, let me just go back through it and show you all the secrets I found. Alright, we first start the scene with some of the upcoming Sculk blocks. First, there's the regular Sculk block, which is just a normal block, though it does have an animated texture where the spots on it twinkle. Next up, there's the Sculk vein. This block is a lot like Glow Lichen, where it can be placed on any side of a block. Its spots also twinkle, just like the Sculk block. Then there's the Sculk catalyst. It appears to be emitting a small amount of light. It also doesn't normally have an animated texture, but we'll get back to that later. And finally, we have the Sculk Shrieker. This block has an animated texture of two souls spinning around in a circle. This is also the only Sculk block not to have been shown at Minecraft Live 2020. However, its texture was leaked a few weeks prior. Notably missing from this scene, and every single other scene, is this block, the Sculk Jaw, aka the Sculk Trap. It appears that this Sculk block was scrapped. Let's continue on. Here we get our first view at Ancient Cities, which for some reason are labeled as Deep Dark Cities. I don't know, maybe the name isn't final. These structures appear to be in the same scale as bastions. Yeah, they're pretty big. Off in the background, in what appears to be the center of the ancient cities, is a strange block, arranged in the border of a rectangle. No, this isn't a block that's already in game. This appears to be a brand new block, and we currently have no idea what its purpose is. This block also appears again here and here. If we go back to where we originally were, we can continue on and see more Sculk blocks along with some candles in the background. This new structure is probably why candles were added into the game in the first place. Now, in this part we can see that a dripstone cave generated directly above the ancient city and deep dark. Since we never see this dripstone cave again in any other clip, that either means that this ancient city is insanely big, or that multiple ancient cities were used to make this footage. Also, I feel it's interesting to point out that while these ancient cities are primarily composed of deep slate blocks and their variants, there's also some other blocks like smooth basalt and basalt pillars. Notably, basalt pillars only previously generated in bastions. There isn't any regular basalt though, which still only generates in the nether. Continuing on, we can see more of the Sculk and more of the ancient city. Right here we can notice something else that's interesting. The floor in this section of the ancient city is made out of wool blocks. This is likely because of Mojang's game development philosophy that the player should be able to naturally figure things out through gameplay. The wool floor here is likely meant to show players how wool can occlude or block vibrations from getting to the Sculk sensor. Another obscure design choice that you might notice is that there are birch planks in this ancient city, though I'm not entirely sure why. In the background of this next clip, we can see what appears to be purple biome-specific fog for the deep dark. The next few seconds of footage is pretty mundane, just showing more views of the ancient cities and Sculk that we've seen before. We then get back to another external hallway of the ancient city, which, like before, has wool on the floor, though this one has more Sculk veins. At the end of the hallway, though, we can see what appears to be a courtyard and some more purple fog in the background. There also appears to be another light source, most likely coming from the surface. This courtyard also gives us our best approximation for how far the Sculk catalyst will be able to spread more Sculk. Finally, this last clip from the first preview shows what appears to be the center of the ancient city. Here, there are 4 pillars with redstone lamps on them. What use is a redstone lamp though without a power source? This leads to my hypothesis that this is once again utilizing Mojang's game philosophy. I believe that above these redstone lamps are actually Sculk sensors to show the player how Sculk sensors can be used as a redstone component. While the preview does end here with the shot of the center of an ancient city, King B-Dogs does have something else interesting to say.
And there's even this ancient structure in the middle of every single city, and it's got something interesting about it that you're going to have to explore in game.
Unfortunately, we'll probably have to wait to figure out what that interesting thing is, though it might have something to do with that new block. The next clip shows us the Sculk catalyst in more detail, including how it can spread new Sculk blocks. When a mob dies near a Sculk catalyst, it spreads new Sculk blocks based on how much XP that mob would have dropped. Notably, this process does not consume XP if it's a player kill, and it can still work even if the mob died to non-player means. Another interesting thing you can see is that when a mob dies near a Sculk catalyst, it blooms and has an animated texture that also releases soul particles, very similar to the ones you get from running with soul speed boots. Also, yes, I can totally see the Sculk spreading mechanic being exploited easily by simple Enderman farms. Though I have no doubt there will also be faster farms as soon as these Sculk blocks come out in the snapshots. Next we get to see how Sculk can be mined. The tool of choice is always the hoe for each block. Interestingly, when you mine a Sculk block, you actually get XP back. I have no doubt this will be exploited for XP farms with minimal player interaction. Also, something very notable here is that every Sculk block requires you to mine it with a Silk Touch tool, with the exception of the Sculk sensor. That includes the Sculk catalyst, which, when mined with a non-Silk Touch tool, drops more XP than a Sculk block. Though I don't think this will be a good XP source because the Sculk catalyst likely will be non-renewable. And now we have the Sculk Shrieker. Here's what Lady Agnes had to say about it.
Then we have the Sculk Shrieker. So when this block is activated, it's gonna give that really scary shriek sound that you heard now. And it also gives this darkness effect, so it's like pulsating darkness.
Yeah, the Sculk Shrieker is a really eerie block that makes very eerie sounds. But from this footage, we can also see that Sculk Shriekers can be wirelessly activated by Sculk sensors. We can also see a new status effect, the darkness effect, which we'll look at later when we see the Warden. Here's another clip that's just too awesome to not show in its entirety. Alright, we get to see a lot in this clip. First, we get to see some of the deep dark loot. This loot is not finalized. It's actually the primary reason King B-Dogs gave for delaying the deep dark. He wanted to make sure that the loot could be useful. One thing he did note, though, was that there'll likely be some kind of projectile in these chests that'll allow you to distract the Warden. Whether or not these projectiles turn out to be the snowballs shown in this clip remains to be seen. Now we get to the fun part, the summoning of the Warden. When Sculk Shriekers are activated too frequently, it appears that they'll summon the Warden. One important note, that Sculk Shrieker up there does not detect the player on its own. There's actually a hidden Sculk sensor that we'll see later on. Let's now just watch the Warden get spawned in again, but this time in slow motion. Here, it appears like the Warden is actually breaking Sculk blocks to be spawned in. However, that's not the case. Though, whether or not this Warden has to spawn in from Sculk blocks remains to be seen. As this player attempts to flee the Warden, we can see, interestingly, underneath the stairs, there's a free skeleton skull. At the top, we can see that hidden Sculk sensor that I mentioned earlier, and as the player turns around, we can see that the Warden indeed did not break any blocks. Then we get to see the icon of the new darkness effect. In case you're wondering what the difference between the darkness and blindness effect is, here's what the blindness effect does. And here's what the darkness effect does. In this same clip, we can also see that the Warden glows in the dark. The only things really left to show from this clip is some more of the darkness effect. You can see how the darkness effect dims the lights all around and makes dark areas darker. And yes, unfortunately, this is the last clip of the Deep Dark, so we'll have to wait to see more. Obviously, even if I didn't show this clip before, we'd all know how it ends. The player fights the Warden, but the Warden is a bit beefy and has a little bit of health. With everything about the Deep Dark shown, let's move on to some other biomes. First, we have the birch forests. The only thing we have to go by at this point in time for the new birch forests is this one concept art. On the side of the trees, we can actually see a new type of fungus in the game. This fungus is called bracket fungi, also known as polypores. On the ground, we can see a fallen tree, which was previously a bedrock exclusive. These birch trees also appear to have 1-block branches, which they previously did not have. Then there are these purple and pink flowers, which appear to be new, along with a new stalky 2-block tall white flower. There are some other flowers in this picture as well, like this 2-block tall flower here, though that one is likely just a lilac, which can already spawn in birch forests. Additionally, all these trees in this concept art look pretty tall, which means that this is likely a concept art for the newly named Old Growth Birch Forest, previously known as the Tall Birch Forest. Finally, we have our last biome, the swamp, which has returned from the dead from losing the 2019 biome vote. This first concept art doesn't show too much interesting. Of course, there's the mangrove trees and fireflies, which we'll talk about later, but the one interesting thing it does show is what appears to be new lotus flowers. The next swamp concept art also isn't all too interesting. It does show us some more mangrove trees, but the one interesting thing about it is that there appears to be some sort of vegetation on the roots of the mangrove trees. You might have also noticed the boat with chests there, which isn't the most unique thing in the world. It sacrifices 1 passenger slot for a chest. The only unique thing that it might be able to do is how it might interact with hoppers. Oh, and obviously there will be a boat with chest variant for every wood type, including the new mangrove wood. So yes, we are getting new mangrove trees. Here's what developer Corey has to say about them.
So as you can see here, this is a propagule, and propagules grow from mangrove trees. They're actually like ready to grow mini mangroves growing from the mangrove. And you can see here the mangrove tree grows propped up on root blocks. It has vines hanging down from the leaves. The propagules are actually growing underneath the leaves. They actually grow from the leaves themselves. And I really like how the propagules are looking here.
Mangrove trees are pretty complex. They're the first tree to have a sapling that can be planted underwater or above water. Mangrove trees also have other unique properties, such as their shape and the fact that not only do they have their own log, but they also have a new root block. If we look carefully here, we can see that unlike leaf blocks, root blocks can be waterlogged. And finally, we can see that propagules, the mangrove sapling, grows from underneath leaf blocks instead of being obtained from breaking leaf blocks. Unlike azalea trees, mangrove trees will also be getting their own types of wood, with a corresponding plank, fence, etc., just like any other regular tree. Here is our first look at some of the new mangrove wood blocks. As you can see, it's orangey, sort of like acacia and jungle, though it's kind of in between the two. Here's a comparison of acacia and jungle with our first look at the mangrove wood. Here's a comparison between the mangrove wood house shown at Minecraft Live and 2 identical houses made out of jungle on the left and acacia on the right. As you can see, mangrove wood will probably end up blending really well with either jungle or acacia. Where do these new mangrove trees come from? Well, the new mangrove swamp biome, of course. Right away we notice something interesting. The mangrove leaves outside of the mangrove swamp are greener than the ones inside of it. This means that these leaves are biome dependent for their color. This is just like acacia, jungle, and oak leaves, and unlike spruce, birch, and azalea leaves. Continuing on, we've got some more shots of the mangrove swamp biome. This is a pretty cool looking biome. It also comes with its own dirt block variant, mud, which we'll be talking more about later. For now though, we can see the propagules growing on the underside of mangrove leaves. these propagules appear to have 5 growth stages in total. On the model of the propagules, you can see that there are empty, budding, small, medium, and large ones. Since the empty and budding stages look so similar, here's an earlier shot just to show the difference between the two. And that is everything we know so far about the mangrove swamp biome. Now, let's move on to mud. Mud can be found either in mangrove swamps or made renewably by using a water bottle on a dirt block. Hopefully, a dispenser will be able to automate that. That way, we can have massive farms turning stone made from a stone generator into moss, then podzol, then dirt, then mud, and then finally, clay. Clay can now also be gotten renewably by putting a mud block over dripstone and waiting. This is probably much faster than the previous way of getting the hero of the village effect and waiting for masons to throw you clay blocks. Another thing you can do with mud is craft mud bricks. Strangely, in this preview, we only saw the normal block of mud bricks. There were no slabs, stairs, or wall variant. Even inside the house, you can see that a stone brick wall was used instead of a mud brick wall. This either implies that mud bricks aren't finished, or that there won't be any slab, stair, or wall variants of mud bricks. The crafting recipe of mud bricks is also worth pointing out. You craft them with mud blocks, wheat, and sand, the last of which is non-renewable. Finally, we get a look at some of the new mobs, including the frog. This mob doesn't seem to be too useful, though one funny thing is, currently, when they jump, their legs detach from their body. Frogs also have 2 puff states when they croak, and they like to jump on both lily pads and big drip leaf. Since they like to jump on big drip leaves, and big drip leaves tilt and drop the mob on top of them, you could technically use a really tall drip leaf to farm frogs. Though, that would probably be useless because I doubt frogs will actually have any drops. The other new mobs, ? Are fireflies. I can't actually really tell if these are actual mobs, or if they're a particle effect, or some weird combination of the two. Here we can see frogs interacting with fireflies. They attempt to eat them, though we never actually see them properly eat a firefly in this preview. Even in slow motion, you can see that this frog fails to actually eat the firefly. The last thing to mention about frogs is that they have a baby form in tadpoles. These small aquatic mobs can be picked up in a bucket just like other small aquatic mobs. There are also 3 types of frogs that tadpoles can grow up into. If they're in a cold temperature biome, they'll grow up into a snowy frog. In a moderately temperatured biome, they'll grow up into the normal frog that we saw before. And finally, if they're in a hot biome, they'll grow up into a tropical frog. The developers have also said that each of these 3 frogs will be able to do something useful to the player depending on which type of frog they are. And that is everything we know so far about 1.19. Oh, wait, also the LA one. Rip Copper Golem, but I'm sure this will be a useful mob too. But with that said, that's everything we've got for now, so thank you all so much for watching, and goodbye.